it's Mia1, and today we're going to be talking about classification, but in science. Classification in science is normally used to classify things. We can also classify things to organize them or to help us learn something, but here it's mostly to classify animals, because we're gonna just be talking about how animals can be classified, mostly mammals here. So now we're here now. Introduction and why we use classification. So why do we use it? Classification is used by scientists to study things, and they learn lots of new things about what they're classifying when they put the thing into a class. For example, if with little information we find out that a new animal that has been discovered is a mammal, we learn lots of things about it, like that it's warm-blooded and it feeds its babies milk. Classification also shows the differences and similarities between things, which also gives us more information. Now, if an animal is in the same group, it can also have a difference. It can also have a major difference, a minor difference. There can be differences and similarities to see why they have that, but they are normally just put into one group so that's easier to understand. Now, the 7 life processes. Now, the 7 life processes are 7 things that show an organism is alive. Any animal or any bacteria or something. Any organism. Organism is basically a living thing. The 7 life processes show that it's alive. So if it doesn't follow all of these, then it might not be living. So movement is basically like how you can move, how I can move, everyone can move, all animals can move, bacteria can move, and not all of them have to move, but they can just tilt and they can be sensitive and all that. And respiration. Now, respiration is the breathing. Like, we can all breathe now. Breathing is something you need to survive. You could breathe in any different way. You just need to take in oxygen and take out carbon dioxide. Or sometimes it's different, like how plants, they take in carbon dioxide, they take out oxygen. Now, sensitiveness. Basically, that's how plants move if they feel in new environments. How we would get hurt and feel pain when we get hurt. Basically, sensitivity. Now, nutrition is to eat. You need to eat. You need to have food. So eating food, having the nutrition for your body, that's another life process. Now, excretion is basically a posh verb to say to poo. Everyone needs to poo and pee sometimes. So excretion is also a way you can say that it's alive. Reproduction. Reproduction is basically making babies. Now, when two animals would make a baby, that's basically reproduction, to make more of something, to make more of that organism. And growth, to make that animal become bigger, like from a baby animal all the way to an adult one. That's growth. Now, remember the name Mrs. Nerg, or you can say Mr. Snurg. Either way, it's to remember the 7 life processes because of the order of the first letters. Now you can see the 7 life processes in order. MRSNERG, Mrs. Nerg, or you can say Mr. Snurg. Here there's like a Mrs. Nerg picture. And that's it. And if you want to basically understand why they use this, there's this trick in writing skills. If you have writing skills, you might know it. If you're good in writing, basically, you might know it. And it's acrostic poems. Now, acrostic poems are basically when you have MRSNERG in this case, Mrs. Nerg. So there's going to be a word starting with that or a sentence starting with that, and it will move on. So basically, it's like an acrostic poem, like you see. They are normally shaped like that in the Mrs. Nerd picture. Movement, reproduction, sensitivity, nutrition, excretion, respiration, growth. But everyone can know it, and if you didn't know that, I'm telling you now. So now the 5 kingdoms. The 5 kingdoms are basically the kingdoms of organisms, of what lives. Now they all follow the 7 life processes, and these groups are animals, plants, bacteria, protists, and fungi. Now bacteria, protists, and fungi are microorganisms. That means they're small. They're small organisms, because the prefix micro means small. If you know mikro in Greek, that's how it is. So I will now explain what these kingdoms are. Now, let's see. The animal kingdom first. An animal is an organism that can breathe and move around, but they can't make their own food, and they have multiple cells in their body. There are over 9 million species of animals on Earth. So, main facts: they can breathe and move around. They can't make their own food. They can't make their own food. They only have to find and hunt for food. And they have multiple cells in their body, like how we have cells. So some examples for animals are a beaver, a cockatoo, a salmon, a tarantula, and a salamander, and there's many more. And these are not the main ones, these are just some that came to my mind. There's a picture of a cockatoo here. It's a type of parrot. And here we are. Now, the plant kingdom. On the picture you can see lots of flowers, and the flowers are part of the plant kingdom. Now, a plant is an organism, and it has chlorophyll to make its own food. Now, chlorophyll is a cell in a plant, a cell in plants. And chlorophyll, it makes its own food. And you know photosynthesis, basically how plants, they use the sunshine, the energy as energy to make their own food. That's what the chlorophyll does. They use the sunlight to make energy to give food to the flower and plants or anything. They, like animals, have multiple cells, but also multiple cellulose, which make plants and cell walls. So like how we have skin cells for our skin, there's cellulose, which make the plant cell walls. Like if you can see the stem of a plant, they're made out of cellulose or something. They can't move around, but they're very sensitive to their surroundings. So that's why we call sensitive and movement for plants the same thing in this. Now, some examples of plants are trees, wildflowers, coral and seaweed, moss, any plant, really. Now, the bacteria. Let's see if I didn't skip anything, so it doesn't look like that. So, the bacteria kingdom. Now, this is a lengthy one. Bacteria are microorganisms, and they're so tiny that they can only... Oh, I can't really read that sentence for some reason because there's something blocking it, but you can read it for yourself. So, bacteria are microorganisms. They're so tiny that they can only be seen through a microscope. Now I remember. Yeah. So the microscopes are basically instruments that are used to see small things, very small things. Now, they're helpful bacteria. They break down food in your body, and they're decomposers. They're called decomposers. They decompose fruits, vegetables to give nutrients to the soil. They can decompose anything to give nutrients to the soil. And then there's the name ribosium. There's ribosium bacteria, and they fertilize the soil with nitrogen. Some bacteria are also used to make food, like yogurt, cheese, and soy sauce. They're used to make food. And introduce bacteria also, and the ones which cause diseases are pathogens. Now, to prevent them, we can wash our hands with soap, and we can use antiseptic. We use it normally now since it's coronavirus times. Though viruses are in a different thing, but we can also use antiseptics to avoid them. Now, remember that viruses are different from bacteria. Exactly what I said right now. Viruses are different from bacteria. They're not the same thing. So now here's some examples of the diseases that pathogens cause. Pathogens are, again, the bad bacteria. Common cold, scarlet fever, cowpox, pneumonia. But the interesting thing about pneumonia is that all bacteria, viruses, and fungi, all those microorganisms, some of them can also cause it too. So some bacteria can cause pneumonia, some viruses can cause pneumonia, and some fungi can cause pneumonia. So that is basically the bacteria kingdom in a nutshell. What you need to know about it. Now, the Protist kingdom. So, the Protist kingdom obviously has protists. And to be a protist, protists are mostly seen through microscopes because they're microorganisms. And they're also single-celled. They have one cell only, and they live in colonies. They live in groups. They have one cell, and they make their own food. Now, some examples of protists are amoebas, algae, Rhizaria, and sea lettuce. You might be familiar with algae and sea lettuce. Algae is that plant which grows in sometimes in the sea or in a pond or something. And there's sea lettuce. It's basically looks like a coral. It grows in the sea mostly, but it can also grow in the ponds. I don't know. But amoebas and Rhizaria, they're basically microorganisms, like how they would look. Like, I don't know anything about them, but if you could comment down below, it's very helpful if you could do that. You can also learn something about protists yourself. Anyways, now, where were we? The Fungi kingdom. This is the last kingdom which I'm about now. The fungi, they have no roots or flowers. So roots are basically the things that stick them down to the ground. So there's no roots. They have no flowers. They don't have any flowering petals or anything. And they can make their own food using photosynthesis, which means they don't have chlorophyll really. They eat decaying matter and they release spores where other fungi will grow. So they eat decaying matter, so basically that's nutrition. So decaying matter would be like something something that's gone bad, like an apple. It could be some food which has gone bad. I don't know. Maybe yuckily it could be some kind of dead rat. I don't know. And some animals that expired, or just basically. It could be, but normally it would be some food which had gone bad. And so fungi, they eat that, like decomposers. And now there are two types of fungi, and now releasing spores. They actually release spores, which are like seeds for plants. They're spores for fungi, and that's where other fungi will grow. So that's the reproduce portion, Mrs. Nerve, the R. They basically create spores they shoot out spores for basically new fungi. Now, there are two types of fungi. Mold, which is normally the mold on food, which grows on food, makes them go bad. And there's mushrooms. Mushrooms, when you're talking about fungi, mostly mushrooms are thought of. For me, that's the case, but other people think about mold too. Now, we'll talk about mold later in this side. So here's some examples of mold. Yeast, that's the mold that's actually used for making bread. We'll talk about later too. mushrooms or fungi, we said that. Penicillium. Now, that's a type of fungi, a mold, which is inside blue cheese. It's edible. That means you can eat it. Basically like yeast. It's one of those edible ones, and it's actually penicillium. By the looks of it, I heard that it's actually yummy. So you can try it out. Comment down below if it's actually good. Athlete's foot. Now, athlete's foot, as you say from the name, I think it's some mold that grows on your foot. It's a disease, basically. Fungi can also cause diseases. Now, vertebrates and invertebrates. Now, the animal kingdom can be further separated into two groups: vertebrates and invertebrates. Vertebrates are animals with backbones, like a tiger, a frog, an elephant, and so on. And there are invertebrates, which are like a worm, a snail, a crab, and so on. Like invertebrates, they mostly have an exoskeleton. Like there's a skeleton outside of them, like a hard shell, like how crabs have those hard shells. Something like that, really. Now, the vertebrate groups. Vertebrate groups are important. Wait, let me see here. Okay. Yeah, now, vertebrate groups are basically important because they're mostly the ones you know. Like here, there's a cat, a goldfish, a turtle, an owl, and a frog. Now, the vertebrates, they can be further separated into 5 groups. So first we go into the mammal kingdom. It can be separated, animal kingdom. So there's all the organisms so far, and the organisms can be split into animals, protists, fungi, bacteria, fish. And plants. Sorry, no fish. Wait, so basically animals, plants, fungi, protists, and bacteria. Now, an animal group can be split further into vertebrates and invertebrates. Vertebrates are animals with backbones, invertebrates are animals without backbones. Now, vertebrates, they can be separated into mammals, fishes, reptiles, amphibians, and birds. Now, first let's talk about the cat. The cat is a mammal. Goldfish is a fish, obviously. There's fish in the name. And the turtles are reptiles. An owl is a bird. Basically, any bird that's flying in the sky, that's a bird. And amphibians are like the frog. We'll explain about these, how you can recognize each one of them if you've never seen one of those animals, which are any of these groups. I'm going to explain how to identify them. Now, I don't know if that's a gazelle or a springbok. I think it's a springbok, but here you can see a springbok. Now, a mammal gives birth to live young. That means that there's no egg. There's no egg. You can see the animal directly. It's gonna be there. But there's monotremes. Monotremes we'll talk about later. The duckbill platypus, like platypuses, they lay eggs now. So that's not unlike mammals, but they're still considered that. And we'll talk about that later too. They feed their young with milk. Obviously, they all do that. Milk from their bodies, and they're warm-blooded. That means their blood is warm, and they breathe through their lungs. They have lungs, so they breathe through that. They all have a coating of fur. That's not lie, it's they. Now, some examples of mammals are whales and porpoises. Now, porpoises, dolphins, whales, they're all in the same group, really. And then there's springbok, lions, elephants, bats. Any mammal, they mostly all have fur. Like, if you don't know, whales are considered mammals, not fishes, because whales actually have just a thin coating of fur on them. They actually have fur. Dolphins, porpoises, they all do, but you can't really see it because it's a very thin one. It looks like there's nothing on it. It looks like it's some kind of scaly fish, like a shark. Now, speaking of that, the fish. Now, they live on... Wait, why is it called the fishes? The fish. They live underwater, so fish can breathe underwater. They can breathe underwater with their gills. You can see their gills sometimes. They're like 3 stripes around their neck. I'm not sure which side, but you can see. And they have fins. Like if you can see the parrotfish here, the very colorful fish. All those fins, they're sticking out of them. They help them propel through the water, so they can swim through the water. They can move through the water. And now they have scales. They have scaly skin, and they lay eggs instead of live young. And the babies will hatch from that. And they're cold-blooded, so their blood's cold. Now, some examples of fish are herring, salmon, cod, the parrotfish here, stonefish. Stonefish is basically a very poisonous fish. It'll blend in to look like the ground. If you step on it, it will inject a very poisonous poison. It's very fatal. But we're not here to talk about that now. We're here to talk about now the reptiles. Now, reptiles, like mammals, they breathe through their lungs. They have lungs, and they also have scaly skin. Now, they're also cold-blooded. So basically, fish are like reptiles, but they don't have fins. They basically, the main part is that they breathe through their lungs. They have scaly skin. They're also cold-blooded. They breathe through. While fish, they breathe through gills. They also have scaly skin, but they also have fins. Like, as you can see here, the crocodile or alligator, I can't really recognize it from this point, but is that a V? Okay, yeah, there's a trick on it. Like, if it's a V, it's an alligator. If it's some kind of U, it's a crocodile. The snout of the crocodile. So I don't know. I think that's some kind of crocodile. Actually, I'm not for sure. But anyways, the crocodile sometimes also lives in water and sometimes comes out, but it doesn't need. It has to go up for air. And it has to go up for air and oxygen. While fish, they can breathe through their gills. They can stay in water. So crocodiles, turtles, iguanas, lizards, alligators, snakes, they're all reptiles. They have scaly skin. We all know that. So the amphibians, they breathe through their slimy wet skin, lay eggs, and are cold-blooded. So slimy wet skin instead of scaly. They lay eggs also, and they're cold-blooded. So fish, reptiles, and amphibians so far, they all lay eggs. And then there's an axolotl. You can see that axolotl. They live in deep places in the sea on the picture. They're one of amphibians, like frogs, toads, newts, salamanders, axolotls, tadpoles. They're all of that. The birds, they also lay eggs too. Now, basically, mammals are the only type of animal to not lay eggs, to give live birth. Now, birds, they're covered in feathers mostly, and they breathe through their own lungs. They have lungs too, and wait, what? I said birds are covered in feathers 2 times. Anyways, so yeah, we get the idea. Birds are covered in feathers, and they breathe through their own lungs. They're warm-blooded. They have warm blood, and some fly. Some, because there's some birds you might know, like the ostrich, the penguin. They can't fly because they're called weightless birds? I forgot the name. Flightless birds, sorry. and because their wings can't support them. Now, if you can see ostriches and penguins, if you think about them, they are very big. Now, that's why their wings can't support the weight of those birds, but instead they found good alternatives. Like ostriches, they can actually run better than fly. Penguins, swim better than fly, but for some reason flamingos are not flightless birds, even though they're big. They must be very lightweight in that case, which actually they are. So yeah, there can be differences. Now you can see the scarlet macaw. It's a type of parrot. So now here's some examples of birds. A bodyguard, house sparrow, scarlet macaw, mockingbird, Hawaiian honeypeeper. Now, they're all different types, but you can say like a sparrow, a robin, a crow. They're all the birds. Any bird, really. We all know birds. Now there's free mammal groups. It gets even smaller. Now, mammals can be separated into free groups. These free groups are depending on how their babies are born. Now, marsupials, placentals, monotremes. I'll explain all these groups in the next 3 slides and give examples of these types of mammals. Yeah, so there's monotremes, marsupials, and placentals. We are placentals. Humans are placentals now. Placentals. Okay, so placentals are mammals. They give live young. All mammals actually give birth to live young, except for monotremes. So placentals and marsupials, they give birth to live young, like marsupials. But unlike them, newborn placentals are born well developed and big. Here's some examples of placentals, like dogs, humans, elephants, giraffes, tigers. What I mean by this, well developed and everything, is that, like for example, if you ever seen a puppy dog, like when it's very young, it's very well developed. You can see the legs and everything, and it's kind of strong. And giraffes, they literally walk from the moment they're born. They're very tall and big, like us human babies are like that. You would say that's small, but marsupials have even smaller babies. And it's not like they're like very small developed in your womb, like you're very small developed in your mother's womb, but when you come out you are very well developed and you're ready to live. And that's not that's not in the case of the marsupial. So that's what I mean. Like actually 1 minute, if we can go back. Look, so there's a baby. I do not know what that is. There's a baby. There's a baby whale. Baby whales are actually like that. I don't know. Is that a baby beaver? A baby rat? A baby beaver rat hybrid? I do not know. You can tell that in the comments. But as you can all see, they're all big and well developed, and they can learn things easier, faster. And marsupials, no, this is basically just when they're bigger. They don't show that, but you can see that later, right now, cause marsupial time. Anyways, marsupials, they also give birth to live young, but the babies, when born, are very weak and tiny. And most marsupial mothers have pouches for the babies so they can live in. So basically, like a kangaroo, they have those pouches because a baby kangaroo is called a joey. So a joey, it would be so small and underdeveloped. Like when it's born, it's basically this pink thing. It doesn't have fur on it at all, really. It only has that thick, very small layer. And now, so mothers have pouches for them. They live in those pouches and they suckle milk. They're that small, but then they grow bigger, and then over time they have to come out of the pouch. So some examples for marsupials are kangaroos, koalas, opossums, Tasmanian devils, wallabies. Now all of them have not all of them have pouches, but they need special care because they're very small, very small. Now we're talking about monotremes. Monotremes are special because they're the only mammals which lay eggs. They lay eggs, and that's basically echidnas, which are those spiky ones. They look spiky. And the platypus. That's all of them, really. Now, monotremes are the most different of all mammals, but they're still considered mammals because of the fur. Yeah, and now the platypus is considered the most different mammal to any other since it has a bill and webbed feet like a duck. That's a bird because I have a feather, but this platypus, it's a hybrid. I guess you could say it's a hybrid between a duck and a beaver. But it's not a hybrid. This is a natural animal. Now, and the platypus, it lays eggs. Now, it's ideal for swimming in lakes and ponds, but that's actually surprising. It's only considered a mammal because it's coated in fur. The scientists were just trying to make it simple, so they just said they have fur. We're putting you in mammals now. So there's a duckbill platypus here. Short-beaked echidna. It's that small brown one. There's two of them. It's the one with the quills. The quills are basically those spiky thorns, really? I don't know. Those spiky things. They're pointing left. On the left on my screen, but on your screen I think it's also left, yeah. And there's a western long-beaked echidna, which is the gray one. So, and then there's all of the others. So there's a short-beaked echidna, western long-beaked echidna. I cannot really read that one. This one, Atlantic chocolate long-beaked echidna. I do not Atenacotate. I have no idea what that's saying right now. Eastern long-beaked echidna over here in the platypus. They all have those smiley faces, smiling eyes. But anyways, now Dichotomous Keys. Dichotomous. I think that's a Greek word. Oh no, wait. Did it say here? Oh no, anyway, so there are two types of dichotomous keys. The branching tree one, so the one on below, and the tabular one here. Now, look, the dichotomous key is based on saying yes or no to a question to find out what kind of thing something is. Basically, it's like how scientists ask questions to see if it's something. The branching tree one will have question cubes, so you can see like it says a gymnosperm. So basically, it's asking if it's a gymnosperm. I don't even know what that is. Well, yeah, basically it's saying it's a gymnosperm. So it's asking, is its leaves scale-like or if its leaves needle-like? So all the plants with scale-like leaves, they go here. All the leaves with needle-like leaves, they go here. You might have seen one of these before, but sometimes it goes a bit complex, like how angiosperms, that's very complex. Now, leaf blade simple, what? Oh, I don't know. Anyways, the branching tree one will have yes, and and the path. Oh, there's gonna be a yes path. There's gonna be a no path, or there's gonna be like it's this or it's that path, and it will go down the path until you find what you want. Until all of the animals, all of the plants or anything, all the organisms, all of the shoes. I don't know anything. It's all sorted. Now, it's the same for the tabular form. But the question will lead you to a number, and then you will have to look at that number section and answer the question there until you get a species. So they're basically the same. What that means, like, I don't know if you can see them well, but it says dichotomous key for leaves. Now, it says A, needle leaves, or B, non-needle leaves. Basically, it's asking, is it needle leaves or is it non-needle? It says if it's needle leaves, you go to 2. So there's the section here marked 2, and then it asks question, and then it says it's a pine or spruce leaf. So it's basically like a branching tree key, but it's much more easier. to understand because it's not like a branch. Like all of them are actually easy to understand. Anyways, now mold and fungi. If you can see there, that's yeast. Yeah. So mold is a type of fungi, and it can sometimes be helpful and harmful. We mostly know it for growing on food, making food bad, and if you eat the mold, you will become sick, obviously. Yeah. But some mold is edible, like penicillium, which is used to make the popular blue cheese. I don't know if that's in France. I think it's in France. Yeah, it's in France. There's also yeast, which is used to make loaves of bread rise. So if you didn't have yeast, the bread would be basically a 2D flat bread. Yeah. But you don't need to use yeast; it'll still be yummy. But yeast is basically to make bread rise, to make it look 3D, 3-dimensional. Anyways, now we know the fungi is a living thing. For example, now we're going to take yeast here. It breathes, respirates by releasing carbon dioxide. It basically releases carbon dioxide to expand and reproduces by multiplying like bacteria. How like bacteria multiply? They just basically split into two, or like how a bacteria, it would split into two more, and then that'll split into two more, and that'll split into two more, and it goes on. Now, mold, it grows in warm and wet conditions. So if it's warm and it's wet, then there would be mold. Okay. One more thing before we end the video. Now that's why there's fridges. Now fridges are cold and they're not warm. They're very cold and they're not that wet. So that's why it's the perfect conditions for mold not to grow. So your food won't go bad. So that's why fridges exist, if you didn't know. But also it keeps food good, basically. That's what it means by keeping food good. Now, thank you for everything, guys. Thank you for the video. And please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you can see. And if you can see, so you can see any new video. Also, share this video to share the knowledge with others. And as always, goodbye and thank you for watching.